Today I'm gonna give you one of the best lower back pain routines that you have ever done for your chronically stiff, achy, painful low back. This is a perfect routine if you have history of herniations, bulges, ruptures, or even degenerative discs like I do. If you've been battling chronic back pain, all you have to do is follow this to the T.
First exercise we're gonna focus on is what I call the tip and tuck, and it's basically rebuilding this relationship through contracting and relaxing and not allowing things to just kind of spasm or stay over contracted. So the tip and tuck, you're essentially gonna do basically two movements. You're going to tip the pelvis forward and we're gonna tuck it back. Now, I know you probably think you've done this before, but listen to the way I coach this. It's paramount that you follow these specific steps. What we're gonna do is first, I want you to take a couple breaths in, into this low back area, and ensure that all the muscles, as much as you can, are just completely relaxed. You wanna start from nothing, as in there's no contraction, no engagement whatsoever. To tip, what I want you to do, I don't want you to just dump your pelvis forward. I want you to push your butt bone, your hip bone, whatever you want to call, whatever you want to identify it as. I want you to tip it forward. So as you're pushing it into the ground, you're going to tip your pelvis forward, okay? Now start small here. You don't have to do massive amounts of arching. I want you to just gently tip it, okay? And I'll show you some progressions you can do here in a second. In the meantime, while you're tipping it, I want you to also breathe in. So you're gonna breathe in and into that low back, and you're going to tip the pelvis forward. And when you come back to neutral, go nice and slow. Exaggerate how you return to make sure when you come back to neutral, you're completely relaxed. There's nothing being engaged. So take a couple deep breaths and you can do it again. Now the tucking portion, once you've understood and you've mastered this gentle tucking, or this gentle tipping, sorry, and then relaxation slowly coming back to neutral, now we can do the tucking. So the tucking is essentially just gonna bring our butt under. So we're tucking our butt under and flattening our lower back. Now what you're gonna feel here is less of a low back engagement as the tipping does. Tipping engages this low back. I want you to drop your hips into the ground. The tucking is going to actually engage these abs more. So your low back muscles should be able to relax. So contract, relax. We're trying to build this relationship up. So as we bring our low back and flatten into the ground, I want you to breathe out. Engaging these abs. You should feel an engagement all the way into your groin. That's the key thing here. And then when you're done, I want you to slowly breathe in and gently go back to neutral. Even if it takes 2 to 3 breaths just to go back to neutral nice and gentle. Now, you've isolated these two movements. You've gotten the tipping and you've gotten the tucking. Now we can kind of make it a little bit harder. It's not supposed to get too much harder. But what I want you to focus on is I want you, as you're bringing your pelvis forward, going back to the first exercise, I want you to feel yourself engage your low back muscles. Not super hard, not super intense, but you're pushing those bones into the floor, tipping your pelvis forward. And to do that as well, I want you to feel your lower back muscles contract. So gently go to the point of pain right before that stop. And you're going to deep breath in. Come out of it nice and slow. One breath in the resting neutral place, and then you're gonna go into the lower back flattening or the tucking exercise. This is how you successfully do the tip and tuck exercise. Follow those key points.
All right, so these next two exercises are going to kind of build off of what you've been doing. Now, I wanna pause for a second because eventually you're gonna wanna level things up. You don't wanna just keep doing this for the next 6 years just to manage your symptoms. You want to begin to build tolerance. Now, picking the right exercise routine, the right rep range sets, the exercises that you're doing is extremely important based off of the pain profile that you have. Now, this is an individual type of thing, but I've built a a kind of a guide that you can follow that's gonna walk you through what I do to build out what I think is the perfect low back pain strength training routine. Just go to fitnessforbackpain.com/pain-free training. That guide will walk you through the exact way that I think about putting together the ideal strength training program for someone just like you. Just go to fitnessforbackpain.com/pain-free training, grab that guide, and you'll be set. Now let's jump back in. Second exercise is what I call the hip ham rock. And what we're gonna be doing is there's a lot of talk around tight hip flexors if you sit a whole lot, and then there's a lot of talk around tight hamstrings, right? And the numerous reasons why we could have tight hamstrings. What I wanna do, instead of just hanging out, locking our knees out and doing some static hamstring stretches, or trying to get into some kind of big, hip flexor stretches where you're overextending your back, causing more irritation, what we're gonna do is the hip ham rock instead. And what we're gonna do, one foot up here, your left foot nice and straight. In this position right here, nice and comfortable. Shouldn't have any kind of issues here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna, making sure that as we are pushing into our hips, we're gonna combine two movements. One is a hamstring stretch here. My knee is not locked out. I'm here, I'm not folding over like this. I'm just simply rocking back to the point of feeling this massive amount of tension here, keeping my spine nice and neutral. This is the hamstring, right? Now the hip portion, in the same position, I want you to squeeze your left glute, because your left glute is the one that's we're gonna be making sure that this is a nice stable joint here on the left side, and I'll show both sides. But we're gonna squeeze this glute here, and we're going to simply shift our weight forward. It's not a lot of movement, right? We're not trying to slam our way into extension. What we're trying to do is just simply get into a smooth rhythm of rocking between the hamstring and the hip, okay? So the hip is gonna be here. I'm contracting my glute, making sure I'm not sitting in extension, my gut's all hanging out. I'm nice and neutral, focusing on bracing that, and then sliding forward until I feel this tension, this pulling in the front of my hip. And then this is where the ham hip rock comes in. I'm gonna come back, spine stays neutral, come forward. So the goal here is to go back and forth. So I'm gonna contract my glute, moving forward, kind of an active mobility range, and not trying to be too much into extension again. And as you come back, you want to kind of hinge your hips back. The spine is still in a neutral position, and you're gonna be sitting back and feeling that stretch. Okay, I'll rotate this really quick, show you a front side shot of this on the other side. So we're here, nice in a line, comfortable position. For some people, just being in this position here, once you have your legs straight down, your feet are going straight back, your foot isn't collapsed in like this. You really want it to be in line. If anything, you can take it a little bit outside just to really kind of make sure you're hitting the front of that leg. Contract my hip, and just simply contracting those glutes and sliding forward. You might already feel it pulling. That's okay. Just sit here. More is not better. We're not trying to like hammer the hip flexor or hip flexors in the front of the hip. We're just trying to get a gentle stretch there and make sure we can breathe into it. From there, we're going to rock back and focus on intentional hamstring stretching there, and come forward. And you're simply gonna rock back and forth. Third and final exercise is getting some gentle flexion with some kind of stability ball. So this is a smaller one. You can honestly, if you don't have one of these, you can grab like some big couch cushions or whatever you have available. Essentially what we're trying to do is create some stiffness. You wanna grab something that you can kind of squeeze your arms around and then hug. And what this is gonna do is kind of act as a guard. As you're kind of moving and doing some certain things in the low back, you're able to kind of use this as a bumper to keep you safe, to feel like you have some kind of support. Sometimes when we're getting into bending, we're kind of scared. We're nervous we're gonna hurt ourselves. So we fire our posterior chain and we're not able to get gentle flexion or extension because of this protection mechanism. So what we're gonna do is the third exercise, as you can see, we're working up. So we start on our back, we got onto our knees, kind of a kneeling position. Now we're up off the ground, right? Now we're able to go from here to walking and going about our day, not get back on the ground. So we did this on purpose. Take your ball, we're gonna squeeze this just like this. And what I want you to do is you can do this a few different ways. If you were to see my feet, they're pretty close together, right? You can do this
wide if you'd like, but if you do it close together, what you're able to do is as you're bending forward, you're able to hinge back, but I'm really trying to flex at the spine. And I'm going so slow where I don't fire those posterior chain muscles as much as I usually do, which just causes a lot of pain. From here, once I'm in this like kind of flexed, relaxed position, look at my spine, right? I'm not perfectly neutral, but I feel safe here. What I'm gonna do is as I'm coming up, I'm going to focus on bringing myself up vertebrae by vertebrae by vertebrae as much as you can, right? This might be a challenge for you because if your muscles have been chronically tight, chronically achy, stiff, you're very fearful around bending, this is going to take a lot of practice, and you might stop right here and then you might come back up vertebrae by vertebrae. What you don't want to do is we're just doing hip hinges, right? This is not the goal here, is to learn how to hip hinge with a neutral spine. We want to actually relax onto this ball, really let this ball take the load, and we're kind of pushing and pulling this ball into our stomach as we gently roll down and down and down and down to the point of discomfort, right? You don't want to go into discomfort. And as you come out, if you find yourself kind of feeling some catching or some sensitive areas, really go slow through those areas and come back up to neutral. Don't overextend, just come right back to neutral. Take a few deep breaths to just relax those muscles. Again, you can do it from the front where we're just rolling down. Different angle for you to see. I'm hinging back at the same time, but I would consider this flexing the low back, flexing the spine, just gently. We're not trying to stretch it, we're not trying to hang out, going down and coming back up. You might feel a little bit of pumping, some warmth going on. You might like a little bit of more of an exercise type of thing. Go simply and go slow. You can also do this sitting down, right? If you have a chair, you can put yourself in a chair. You might have to open your legs up a little bit where you're sitting in this chair now and you're just kind of allowing this ball to drop down in between your legs and then you're coming back up. Another quick way you can do this is actually on a chair, so let's jump to that. All right, so this will be my makeshift chair. What we're gonna do here is follow the same rules. The only rule that we're gonna break is the feet together, because if you can see here, if I squeeze this, boom, I'm gonna hit my feet. I'm not gonna be able to go down. And that might be where you're at, but odds are you can go a little bit further than that. So we're gonna go nice and wide here. And we're gonna take our ball, we're gonna hug it, get it nice and tight to your body, squeeze, and we're just going to slowly go down into flexion, squeezing that ball, and that's gonna give us some safety and some security to our brain that we're okay, that we're holding on to something, right? That we don't have to go into panic mode as we bend over. Here, come down, relax, and come back up. So this is kind of like a follow along. Essentially what we're trying to do is get some movement routines going on a daily basis that are gonna impact the lower back. These 3 exercises are great. Now keep in mind, some of these exercises may need to be modified to fit you best. I'll kind of highlight that here in a second. But these 3 are some of the best movements you can do for your sensitive low back.
Now the part you may get stuck at when you're applying these 3 exercises is really identifying the number of reps, the sets, modifications, if something works, if something doesn't work. This is where context comes in, right? This is why I have a one-on-one coaching program to really help apply the context or use context to apply very specific exercises. So keep in mind, if your sensitivity is high, these exercises will need to be modified to fit where you are. If your sensitivity is low, you may have to kind of build up to the intensity as far as making things harder, maybe focusing on more endurance, doing more rep sets that your body can handle to continue to build that tolerance. So you'll have to kind of navigate that on your own. Again, once you've gotten to the exercise portion where you're ready to start building strength, you have control over your pain, go to fitnessforbackpain.com/pain-free training. That guide will walk you through exactly what you should be doing. Thanks for watching. God bless, and I will see you on the next episode.